Stotra Satashishi Mata's Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Krishna Bhutale, Srimati Vachani, Nivashesha Shanvari Patate Shatarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 1, The First Step in God Realization, Text 5. I'm supposed to be the host here, but I don't have the verse set up.
I can share the screen after that. I will.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Mother. 2:1:5. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chetabayam. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chetabayam. Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chetabayam. Everyone chant, please.
Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smarthavyas Chechathabhayam.
Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chetabayam.
Hare Krishna. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chichatbhabhayam.
Hare
Krishna. Tasmad Bharat Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chetabayam.
Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chetabayam.
Anyone else? Okay, word
Hare
for word.
Krishna.
Oh, yes, go ahead, please.
तस्माद् भारत सर्वात्मा भगवान् ईश्वरो हरिः श्रोतव्य कीर्तितव्य च स्मर्तव्य चेच्छताभयम्.
Okay, thank you. Word for word translation. Tasmat, for this reason, Bharata, O descendant of Bharata, Sarvatma, the super soul, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Ishvara, the controller, Hari, the Lord who vanquishes all miseries. Shrotavya is to be heard, Kirtitavya, to be glorified, Cha, also, Smartavya, to be remembered, Cha, and Ichata, of one who desires, Abhayam, freedom. Translation. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. In the previous verse, Sri Shukadev Goswami has described how the foolish, materially attached men are wasting their valuable time in the improvement of the material conditions of life by sleeping, indulging in sex life, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul entangles himself in the cycle of the law of fruitive actions. This entails the chain of birth and death in the 8,400,000 species of life, the aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the uncivilized man, and then again the human form, which is the chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi or enjoyer of the results of one's own work, good or bad. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 27, also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's account. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord, and by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the super soul, Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings, and thus by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in his creation. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone, whoever he may be, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. There are many classes of human beings, the fruitive workers, the empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, and ultimately the unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process is applicable for achieving the desired success. Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this here and now is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Shukadeva Goswami. By hearing about and glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyas Chitatabayam. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. Thank you everybody for coming today. This is a very nice verse, very excellent verse and excellent purport. We've been hearing since the beginning of the second canto in answer to the question at the end of the first canto, what should be done, what shouldn't be done. So the first 4 verses of this canto were what should not be done. And we heard about this in the previous verse. Srila Shukadeva Goswami has described the foolish materially attached men. So all of that was described in the first 4 verses. And now in this verse, the positive answer to the question is being given. The question was from the end of the 19th chapter of the first canto. Yachotavyam ato japyam. Shotavyam and japyam. What should be heard and what should be chanted? What should your hearing be and what should your japa be? Yat kartavyam nibhi prabho. And for all people, kartavyam, what should their actions be? What should they do? Smartavyam, bhajaniyam va. What should their smartavyam be? What should they be remembering? And bhajaniyam, and what should their worship be? What should they be worshiping? Bruhi yadva viparyayam. And viparyayam, and what's the opposite? Or in other words, what should they not be doing? So this is a question at the end of the first canto. First 4 verses was the negative answer, the wrong answer, what should not be done, the materialistic life. Prabhupada talks about it, sleeping, sex life, making money, maintaining a band of relatives. This is all the sum of materialistic life, and this is not the goal of life. So what should Parikshit Maharaj positively do? What should he hear? What should he chant? What should his work be? What should his remembrance and his worship be? So let's see now. This is very, this section here, whole section here of this chapter is very reminiscent, not repetitive, but repeating many of the same points from earlier in the Bhagavatam, especially in the second chapter of the Bhagavatam. All the sections about the importance of hearing Bhagavatam, talks about what one's duty in Varnashram is and how the perfection of that is through devotional service and by hearing Bhagavatam. All of that is repeated in the next few verses we'll be hearing over the next couple of weeks. And also repeating what was in chapter 7 of the first canto. Again, the importance of chanting, the history of Bhagavatam, and the position of Shukadeva Goswami, learning it from his father and being attracted to it, even though he's an Atmarama, even though he's a liberated soul. The liberated souls are also attracted. So all of this is going to be covered in the upcoming verses, the same points we've heard before. But before we heard Sutta Goswami telling the sages of Naimisharanya about it. And now we have Shukadeva Goswami himself expressing it to Parikshit Maharaj. And they're also the same message that we're getting in today's verse is given there, just like in the second chapter. Tasmad ekena manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati. Tasmad ekena manasa, that your mind should be focused, fixed, one-pointed on Bhagavan Sattvatam Pati, on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees, just like today. Today's verse is saying how the Lord protects the devotees by delivering them from all fear and from all miseries. So fix your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the protector of the devotees. How? Shrotavya kirtitavyascha dhyaya pujas chanityada. Almost the same directions as given today. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha, by hearing, by chanting, dhyaya, by remembering, by meditating, and also puja, worship is added also. Nityada, constantly, eternally, worshiping and serving the Lord and hearing and chanting about the Lord. So the same message as we heard in the first canto we're hearing here, and we'll hear it again and again throughout the whole Bhagavatam. This is the message of the whole Bhagavatam. And who's it for? It's for everyone. Also in the last chapter, it's described what is the duty for Sarvatmana Mriyamanai. Sarvatmana means for what is the duty for all persons, for every person. And Mriyamanai means, and specifically, what is the duty for those who are about to die. So it's for everyone, but it's especially pointed, especially focused question, and especially focused answer of the duties for one who is about to die. Or also in the previous chapter, it's mentioned twice. Purushasyeha yat karyam mriyamanasya. Same thing, Purushasyeha, for all people, what is their duty? And especially mriyamanasya, for those who are about to die. This means that the practice of bhakti yoga, and specifically the instructions to hear and chant and remember Krishna, are for everyone, for every single person, and it's also especially for those who are about to die. And another understanding is that it's for everyone because everyone, that person who is about to die is everyone, because we don't know when our death is coming. So that means it's for everyone because we're about to die, because death is coming and death is the most fearful thing. Therefore, today's verse says, Ichata bayam. Do you desire to be freed from fear? Everyone desires to be to become freed from fear. So if you desire that, then this is the answer, because we're all about to die and death is the most fearful thing. Everything's taken away. Prabhupada mentioned, just like I already read in the purport, Prabhupada mentioned, your sleeping, your sex life, your economic development, your band of family and relatives, all of this is taken away at the time of death. All your enjoyment, all of your sense gratification, all of your wealth. There's the common saying in English, we say, you can't take it with you. So when you die, you can't take your wealth with you. There's a Jewish saying, a Yiddish saying, that burial shrouds have no pockets, because you can't take your wealth, you can't take anything with you. So at the time of death, it's all taken away. And your family, your beloved wife, your children, your extended family, your nationality, your political party members, your friends, all taken away at the time of death. So this is the most fearful. So a sensible person who is ichata bayam, who desires to become fearful, to become free from being fearful. This is the answer. This is the response to those people. If you want to become free from fear, shrotavya kirtitavyascha smartavyas chechata bayam. If you want to become free from fear, chant about Krishna, hear about Krishna, chant about Krishna, and remember Krishna. Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari. He's the super soul. He's the supreme personality of Godhead. He's the Lord and controller of all, and he's Hari. He takes away everything inauspicious for his devotees. So this is the first duty and the first answer. If we want to become free from fear, if we want to become free from death, if we want to become advanced in devotional service, hearing and chanting. This is the most, the key thing. Just like, and the benefits are untold and so far-reaching, just like later on in the 10th canto. Of course, the whole Bhagavatam, every canto, every verse is Krishna Katha. But still, when the 10th canto came, Parikshit Maharaj said to Shukadev, he was, thank you very much. You've spoken so much. You've told me about the different devotees and the different avatars. You've told me all the glorious kings of the Soma, the Somavams, the Mood dynasty, and all the great kings in the line of the Surya Vamsha, of the Sun dynasty, all these great kings, and the Yadu dynasty, and so many great people. But now, please, he's saying to Shukadev Goswami, please tell me directly about the pastimes of Krishna. And then he says, he speaks this very nice verse at that time. He says, Vasudeva Kata Prashna Purusham Punatihi Vaktaram Prachakam Shrotrims Tat Pada Shailam Yata. Vasudeva Kata Prashna, inquiries about Krishna, about Vasudev. Kata, we know this word prashna from Bhagavad Gita, to inquire, to ask a question. So Vasudeva Kata Prashna, inquiring, asking someone, give me Krishna Kata, give me the pastimes of Krishna, the philosophy of Krishna, the quality of Krishna. Tell me about the devotees of Krishna. All of these questions, Purushams Trin Punatihi, they purify everyone, and specifically, they purify three groups of persons. They purify Vaktaram Prachakam Strotrims. They purify Vaktaram, the person who is speaking the Krishna Katha, is purified. And Prachakam, the person who is inquiring and hearing the Krishna Katha, is purified. And Shrotrims and any other people who incidentally get to hear this inquiry and answer, they also become purified. All three of them become purified. Tat pada shalilam yata. Tat pada shalilam means the water that has washed the lotus feet of the Lord. This means the sacred Ganges. The sacred Ganges purifies everyone. It also purifies three types of persons, because the Ganges flows through the whole universe. So when it flows through the heavenly planets, it's purifying all of the devatas in heaven and all the sages in the upper planetary systems. And when it flows on the earth planet, it's purifying all of the ordinary human beings on this earthly plane. And even it continues flowing into the hellish planets, and there even the demons and fallen beings in the lower planetary systems become purified. So also those three types of persons become purified. Just like Bur Bhuva Swa, we'd say the three worlds. So all the three worlds become purified by the Ganges, because it's the water that bathed the lotus feet of the Lord. And the other water that bathes the lotus feet of the Lord is the Charanamrita of the deity in the temple. This is also water that has bathed the lotus feet of the Lord, and you become purified by taking that. So in the same way, Tatpada Shalilam Yata, Yata means just like. So just like the Ganges and the water from the Lord's lotus feet purifies everyone, so Krishna Katha purifies everyone. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the most powerful purification is for the speaker, the person who's actually speaking the Krishna Katha. And next is the person who is hearing the Krishna Katha. And next in line in terms of benefit are those incidental people in the audience or in the area who are hearing the Krishna Katha. This is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. But Srila Sanatana Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, in their commentary on this, they say, yes, these three are different, the speaker, the hearer, and the general audience. But in another way of looking at it, these three are actually one single unit. Because without a without a speaker, there's no meaning to being a hearer. And without a hearer, there's no meaning to being a speaker. So they're actually a single unit, and the hearer and the speaker in the audience are actually all advancing together. That's another way of looking at it. Because one without the other becomes meaningless. Just like there's the example of the gold testing stone. This is something that's used in India. It's a big black stone, and a experienced mineralogist or jewelry expert, experienced jeweler. I've seen this actually at HG Jeweler in Vrindavan many years ago. He showed me how it works, the proprietor there. It's a big black stone, and if you take something gold and you rub it against the black stone, it leaves a gold-colored streak. And according to the quality of that golden streak, how bright it is, how wide it is, what its nature is, you can actually tell, okay, this is pure gold, or this is half gold, or this is gold mixed with some other alloy. So the idea is that without gold, the gold testing stone is simply a rock, a meaningless rock. So without the gold, the gold testing stone has no meaning. And without the gold testing stone, you also can't understand how pure the gold is. So they're two things, but they're a unity. They work together, and each one gives meaning to the other. So similarly, the hearer and the chanter and the audience, although they're different and there may be different gradations, and usually it's just common practice that the person who's speaking gets a little more respect, so there's more benefit there. But actually, it's a unity that we're all working together. The speaker, the hearer, the audience are all benefiting. Just like the speaking of Bhagavatam, Shukadev is the speaker, and Parikshit Maharaj is the hearer, and they're actually both equally advanced. And also in the audience is the royal family and all the members of the court and all the sages and all the assistants. They're also there, and they're also all hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and benefiting. And then in that audience, when Shukadev spoke to Parikshit, was Sutta Goswami. So he was a hearer. He was one of the hearers. Then he went to the sages of Naimisharanya, and they inquired from him. He was a hearer. Now he's a speaker to the sages of Naimisharanya. So there's fluidity, that the speaker also has to be willing to hear, and the hearer also has to be willing to share what he's heard and speak it to others. Just like Prabhupada said about himself, he said, because I was good at Shravanam, now I am good at Kirtanam. And we know from Srila Prabhupada's history, even when he was a young man, early on in the Gaudiya Math, just like one time Bhakti Siddhanta, he arranged a Vrajmal Parikrama. And one night they were camped out at one place, and the organizers came out and announced, okay, tonight we're organizing a big, we're going to visit Sheshashayi temple, big temple near the edge, sort of on the outskirts of Vrindavan, important temple where Vishnu is there as like lying down like Sheshashayi Vishnu. It said, so we're visiting that temple. And also those who want to not go to that, Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Guru Maharaj is also speaking tonight. So those who want can stay, and those who want to go can visit the temple. So of course, everyone on Parikrama, everyone loves visiting the temples. So almost everyone went to visit this Sheshashayi temple. And Prabhupada thought to himself, Sheshashayi, what am I going to see, Sheshashayi temple? Let me hear from my Guru Maharaj. So very few devotees, just a few sannyasis, and Srila Prabhupada remained to hear from Bhakti Siddhanta. And later on, when Prabhupada was recommended for initiation, Bhakti Siddhanta says, yes, I have marked him. He likes to hear. So because of that, because he liked to hear, he was good at Shravanam, then he became the unmatched master of Kirtanam, spreading Kirtan all over the world. Kirtan of the holy name and Kirtan of speaking about Krishna, speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. his composition of Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and composition, that's also kirtanam, that his kirtan spread to all over the entire globe, all because he was enthusiastic and good at hearing. So this is the power and the beauty of hearing and chanting. Or Parikshit Maharaj himself, he heard from Shukadev Goswami. And then after he heard from Shukadev Goswami, Shukadev left, and he only had a very little bit of time left. And then his mother came to him and said, oh, you're going to die soon. You've just heard the essence of all scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami. But can you speak for me the essence of that essence? And Parikshit Maharaj then spoke to his mother, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So in the same way, Parikshit Maharaj, he was the perfect hearer in audience of Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus he also became the perfect preacher to his mother. So Shrotavya, Smartavya, that you hearing intensely and intently and focused, hearing about Krishna. And then from that, you go on to speak about Krishna. Even Prabhupada said, you hear a little bit. If you hear Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if you accept that and realize that, and you go out and speak to someone else, yes, did you know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That's perfect hearing and chanting. What to speak of those of us who have devoted years or decades to practicing and studying and learning about Krishna consciousness. It's incumbent on us to do this, to increase our hearing, and from that to increase our chanting, both the quantity and the quality of our chanting. And then from that, what happens from that? Smartavya. Then automatically you'll be able to remember Krishna. It's not that you hear about, well, I say it's not that, but actually for me, it often is that. You hear about Krishna, you hear a class, or you speak, or you give a class, and then the class is over and you go away and you go to work, or do you go to your material life and you forget all about that? So that's incorrect. The correct method is that you hear about Krishna, you speak about Krishna, and then for a sane person, for a serious devotee, the natural conclusion is that you will go on remembering Krishna. You'll be remembering all those wonderful things you heard about Krishna, his name, his nama, rupa, guna, lila, sangha, all of these things about Krishna, dhamma, all these things about Krishna's name, form, quality, pastimes, his abode, his devotees, and you'll hear it, and then you'll speak about it, and then naturally you'll also remember it throughout the day. And when you do that, Shrotavya kirtatavyascha, smartavya, Chaitabayam, then you could become advanced in devotional service. Then you could become free of the fear of materialistic life. Shrotavya, hearing, kirtan, chanting, and smartavya, remembering. So it is hearing and chanting, remembering. Many verses, just like I mentioned that verse in the second chapter. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha dhyayas pujascha nityada. Many times these few things of the item, we know that there's 9 angas, 9 items of devotional service, but very often when we hear and speak about devotional service, we will focus, and the Bhagavatam many times focuses Shrotavya kirtitavyascha, hearing and chanting, or even Shravanadi. Sometimes the term Shravanadi means hearing, etc., and all the other things, because this hearing and chanting are very, very key, essential items of all the 9 items of devotional service. These are foundational. Now, from any one, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Pujam, Vandanam, all of these things, from any, even just one of them, one can become a pure devotee, and the examples are given. Parikshit Maharaj became perfect by hearing, Shukadev by chanting. Who was remembering? Was that Prahlad Maharaj? Became perfect by remembering. Prithu Maharaj by worshiping. Akrura by offering prayers. So all of these examples are there. But still, for us, hearing and chanting are very key and very foundational. So when we hear about this, hearing and chanting, we should understand that this is the most important items of devotional service. And also it's a kind of shorthand that when, hearing and chanting are mentioned, it's a shorthand for referencing the entire process of devotional service. That the whole thing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, all of them are being implied. They're all implied and they're all contained within those two items of Shravanam and Kirtanam. Another thing is that Shravanam and Kirtanam and Smaranam are also significant in another way. Shravanam means hearing. Hearing is the emblem of all of the Gyanendriya. We know in Vedic understanding there's the Gyanendriya, or the senses for gathering knowledge. The ears for hearing, the eyes for seeing, the nose for smelling, the tongue for tasting, and the skin for touching. This is how we gain knowledge of the world around us. And hearing is emblematic of that. So when we hear about chanting, that means all of our knowledge gathering senses are to be engaged in contacting Krishna, in experiencing Krishna, by hearing Krishna Katha, by seeing the form of Krishna, by smelling the flowers and tulsis, by tasting the prasad, like that. So that's Shravanam. Kirtanam is the action of the tongue. The tongue is a Gyanendriya in sense of tasting, but the tongue in its action of speaking is one of the Karmendriya, or one of the five senses by which we act upon the world. With our tongue we speak, with our hands we manipulate, with our legs we walk and travel. So there's Gyanendriya and Karmendriya, and hearing and chanting are emblematic, symptomatic of all of the activities of all of the knowledge gathering senses and all of the active senses. And Smartavya, remembering, this is the emblem or the stand-in for all of the subtle activities of the mind, intelligence, false ego. So in this way, we can understand Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam are actually representing the whole gamut of what our life is. That we have the knowledge gathering senses, we have the active senses by which we act upon the world, and we have the subtle senses of the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam, or Smartavya, represents all of this. So in other words, that means those three things are a stand-in for our full existence on every aspect, internally and externally, are meant to be devoted to Bhagavan Ishwaro Hari, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is how we become advanced in devotional service. Just like there's so many nice verses, so many nice instances of this. One example is there was a devotee, Kavi Karnapur. I can't remember now what his given name was, but later on, because he became such a great scholar, and because of this verse he spoke, he was given the name Kavi Karnapur. When he was just 7 years old, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu initiated him into the chanting of the holy name, and he said, speak some verse. So when he was 7 years old, he spoke this verse. Shravaso kuvalayam akshnor anjanam, oraso mahendramani dam, vrindavana ramaninam mandanam, akilam harir jayati. This is a very beautiful verse and very poetic imagery and sort of metaphorical language. He says, Shravaso kuvalayam, that Krishna is just like the blue lotus decorating the ears of the gopis. The gopis is Vrindavan Ramaninam, the young girls of Vrindavan. Krishna is like the blue lotus on their ears, because Krishna is bluish in color. And because saying that Krishna is the blue lotus on their ears means, poetically speaking, that their ears are totally devoted to hearing about Krishna. And then Akshnor Anjanam. We know Anjana. Anjana means eye ointment, or this kajal that's used for decorating the eyes. And Krishna, he's the kajal on the eyes of the gopis. So just like Krishna is the blue lotus on their ears, means that their hearing is completely devoted to hearing about Krishna. So Krishna is also the kajal on their eyes, means that their seeing is only devoted to seeing Krishna. They only want to see Krishna. And Oraso Mahendramani Dham. Oraso means on their chest. And on their chest, Krishna is the Mahendramani, or Indranila, the bluish sapphire hanging on their chest is Krishna. And that the imagery of that is that as the sapphire hangs on the chest, bluish, as Krishna is bluish like a sapphire, so he's always situated within their heart. So they're hearing about Krishna, they're seeing only Krishna, and within their heart is only Krishna. Akilam Harir Jayati, all glories to Lord Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who takes away all of the fear and all of the inauspiciousness for his devotees. So this is the beautiful poetic verse by Kavi Karnapur, speaking the same thing, that the hearing, the seeing, all of the senses are engaged in Krishna, and also within the heart. Within the heart doesn't mean within the physical organ of the heart, of the cardiac muscles, but it means within the heart, within the consciousness, within the inner sense of absorption of the person. Only Krishna is there. Lord Krishna is just like a bluish lotus flower for the ears. He is ointment for the eyes, a necklace of Indranila gems for the chest, and universal ornaments for the gopi damsels of Vrindavan. Let that Lord Sri Hari be glorified. So the universal ornaments, so not just the lotus on the ears, or the kajal on the eyes, or the jewel on the chest, but Krishna is everything. Every ornament you can conceive of is Krishna, which means that every aspect of our lives, every aspect of our bodies is devoted to Krishna. To state it simply, that the ears are for hearing about Krishna, the eyes are for seeing the form of Krishna, and the heart is for remembering Krishna. One other nice verse, a very beautiful verse, favorite verse, is spoken by, composed by Srila Rupa Goswami in his drama, and he put this verse in the mouth of, oh my God, I'm having a senior moment here. She's, oh my God, I feel really stupid now. She's personification of Yoga Maya, the mother of Sandipani Muni. Someone help me here. Begins with a P. It's right on the tip of my tongue. No one? Elderly lady came to Vrindavan. Someone help me. Purnamasi. Jesus. Wow, I feel so embarrassed I couldn't remember that. So Purnamasi, he put this verse in the mouth of Purnamasi. At the beginning of his drama, Purnamasi is speaking with her granddaughter, Nandimukhi. And they're saying, oh, we have to make plans to bring Radha and Krishna together. And Purnamasi is saying, oh, what should we do to make Radharani love Krishna? And Nandimukhi replies, what do you mean, make her love Krishna? She's already attained the topmost level of love for Krishna. How are you going to make her love Krishna? So Purnamasi says to her granddaughter, yes, that's true, but what's your evidence for that? And Nandimukhi says, the evidence is that if she simply hears Krishna's name, or hears about Krishna, or sees anything even related to Krishna, she immediately becomes stunned. And Purnamasi says, yes, what you're saying is exactly correct. You're right. And to support it, she spoke this verse, which is also quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Tunde Tandavani Ratim Vitanute Tundavali Labdhaye Karna Kroda Kadambani Gatayate Karnar Budebhyaspriham Cheta Prangana Sangini Vijayate Sarvendriyanam Kritim No Jane Janita Kiyad Biramritai Krishneti Varna Dwai. This verse means that when I chant the holy name of Krishna, then I think, why do I only have one mouth? Let me have millions of mouths to chant the holy name. With one mouth, what could I possibly relish of the nectar of Krishna's names? If I had a million mouths, maybe I could taste a little bit of the nectar of Krishna's names. And when I hear the holy name, when the holy name enters Karnar Buddha, when the holy name enters the holes of my ears, then Karnar Budebhya Spriham. First of all, my ears perk up. Have you ever seen like a dog, sometimes dogs that have floppy ears, and then when they hear a sound, their ears will like stand up straight? You may have seen that before. So human ears don't do that, but psychologically, when I hear the holy name enters my ears immediately perk up to hear the holy name, and then I desire, oh, what can I taste of the holy name? What can I appreciate of the holy name with a mere 2 ears? If I had millions of ears, maybe then I could appreciate a little bit of the holy name. And Chaita Prangana Sangini Vijayate Sarvendriyanam Kritim. And then when the holy name, because the holy name, it comes from the mouth, and then it enters the holes of the ears. And what happens after it enters the holes of the ears? It enters into the heart. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of my heart, Vijayate Sarvendriyanam Kritim, all of the activities of my senses become conquered, become stunned. My material senses become stunned and overwhelmed when the holy name dances in the courtyard of my heart. No jane janita kiyad biramritai krishneti varna dwai. Who can estimate how much nectar is contained in those 2 syllables, Krishna? So this is again saying the same thing, that the mouth is chanting, this is kirtan, and the ear is hearing, this is shravanam, and the holy name is entering into the heart, this is smartavya. So these same 3 things are being described in this very beautiful poetic way. And Prabhupada is summarizing it very beautifully in today's purport. Here's a little segment from today's purport. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. So these 3 things are there, and there's a natural sequence to them, as Prabhupada is describing in the purport, that you hear about Krishna. And then when you get some realization, some inspiration, some bliss from hearing about Krishna, then the natural outcome is that you speak about Krishna, you tell about Krishna, you give class about Krishna, you go on Sankirtan, you preach to other people about Krishna. And then when you do that, that also has a natural consequence. And the natural consequence of that is that we remember Krishna. Krishna becomes situated within our heart. So this is the natural process, the standard process of what's going on. You hear about Krishna, you chant about Krishna, and you internalize Krishna within your mind, within your heart, within your intelligence. This is the process. And why is this process so powerful? Hearing and chanting, remembering. Why is it so incredibly powerful? Continuing with today's purport, Prabhupada says, right after the segment I just read, let's see. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. And by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the super soul present in the hearts of all living beings, and thus by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in his creation. So this is why hearing and chanting is so powerful. And this is also why devotional service works, why it's an actual process that gives results. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord. This is why devotional service works, because of that fact. We know, Bina Tvam Nami Namino. Materially speaking, if I'm thirsty and I start saying water, 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 it's not going to quench my thirst. Rather, it's just going to dry out my mouth even more. But spiritually, if you desire Krishna and you chant Hare Krishna, then you're directly touching, contacting Krishna himself, and you can be fully satisfied through that chanting of the Maha Mantra, because Abhinatvam Nami Namino. There's no difference spiritually between the name and the possessor of the name. So that's the principle that Prabhupada is talking about here. Or the deity form of the Lord. There's no difference. Our mundane vision says, oh, this is brass, this is stone, this is paint. This is the mundane vision. But just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, when he saw the Sakshi Gopal deity, he prayed, he said, my Lord, dear Lord, you are not a statue. You are directly Nanda Kumar, the son of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan. There's no difference. Srimad Bhagavatam is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. This is also something we hear in the, I think it's in the second chapter of the first canto, that the sages of Naimisharanya asked, where has religious principles gone now that Krishna has left the earth? And the verse is escaping me now, but he says that in this age of Kali, that Krishna has given us the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is just like the sun arising in Kali Yuga to give us light. So, and Prabhupada says in the commentary, says, one can see Krishna on every page of Srimad Bhagavatam. So again, this principle of non-difference, that hearing and chanting, non-different from direct contact with Krishna himself. Hearing about and glorifying, I'll read it again. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord, and by so doing, one will always be in the association of the Lord. When you're contacting these things, hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, and remembering Krishna, when you're contacting those, you're directly contacting Krishna himself. Just like the pujari gets to go on the altar and directly touch Krishna himself. And Prabhupada also said, who is more fortunate than the pujari who gets to do this? But we all get to, of course, if we're second initiated, we can actually take up pujari service and do that, and we should. But also just by chanting the holy name, we're touching Krishna, we're contacting Krishna. By reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we're contacting Krishna. And this is why all of these items, I always come back to these same 5 items that Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Nam Kirtan, Satsang, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathuravas, Archamurti, Shraddhaya Sevan. These 5 things are so powerful that just a little contact with them can bring one to the stage of bhava. And because these 5 things are so powerful, because they are directly touching Krishna. Nam Kirtan, touching Krishna in his holy name. Satsanga, directly associating with Krishna's devotees who are always situated at his lotus feet. Bhagavat Shravan, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Mathura Vas, going to the holy places. The temple is a holy place, and the Vrindavan is also a holy place. Just like in Vrindavan, you go there, and what are you doing? You're touching the ground that Krishna himself walked on. Just like Akrura, when Akrura came to Vrindavan, and he saw in the dust of Vrindavan Krishna's footprints, and he jumped off the chariot and he started rolling and rolling in that dust in the footprints of Krishna. So he's touching the ground that touched Krishna. That means he's touching Krishna. He's contacting Krishna. Therefore, he's purified. Therefore, he's in ecstasy. So just like the footprints of Krishna, there's still in Vrindavan today 1 or 2 places where you could see spots where Krishna's footprints have been preserved in stone. But long ago, I was in Vrindavan, and on the way, I was introduced to one old sadhu, not in our line, but an old sadhu who had been living in Vrindavan for decades and doing parikram, Govardhan parikram every day. And we came to that spot near Govardhan, in the middle of near the center of Govardhan town, or just outside Govardhan town, where there's a preserved footprint of Krishna. And this old person, who was also himself old, said, "Oh, my Guru Maharaj said that when he was young, there were many dozens of places all around Govardhan, all around Vrindavan, where you could find preserved spots of Krishna's footprints. But now almost all of them are lost and covered over. So these things are not there, but still you go there, every speck of dust was touched by Krishna's lotus feet there in Vrindavan." Another time I was in Vrindavan, and I was on parikrama with His Grace Dinabandhu Prabhu. And we were hearing, at different places you hear this story, oh, this pastime happened here, or this pastime happened there. And sometimes you hear some conflicting stories. So I said to him, oh, sometimes we hear like Krishna stole the clothes of the gopis at this place. And then at another person will say, oh no, Krishna stole the clothes of the gopis at this other place. So what are we to make of this? And he said, yeah, there's different versions. We can't always know what exactly is true. But in Vrindavan, 3 things we know are always true, always factual. Govardhan Hill, the waters of the Yamuna, and the dust of Vrindavan. These we can be 100% certain of. Did a pastime happen here, or did it happen a mile down the road? We may not always be sure, but the dust is there. The Vrindavan water is there. Govardhan Hill is there. We can be certain. And by contacting these, by touching these, we're touching Krishna. And Mathura Das and Archamurti, again, serving the deity is the most obvious, that if you're serving the deity is Krishna. And if you're bowing down, you're directly contacting Krishna. So this is the whole of bhakti, to put us back in contact with Krishna, to literally and figuratively to touch Krishna, to contact Krishna. Prabhupada he actually spoke at a nice commentary on the song Nitai Pada Kamala. And here's what he said. He said, without becoming Brahman, one cannot approach the Supreme Brahman. Just like without being fire, nobody can enter into fire. Without being water, nobody can enter into the water. Similarly, without being fully spiritualized, no one can enter into the spiritual kingdom. So, Nityayer Charana Satya. If you catch Nityayer, the lotus feet of Nityananda, then you become immediately spiritualized. Just like if you touch electricity, immediately you become electrified. That is natural. Similarly, Nityananda means eternal happiness. If you touch Nityananda some way or other, then you become also eternally happy. Tanhara Sevaka Nitya. Therefore, one who is in contact with Nityananda, they have become eternal. Nityayer Charana Satya, Tanhara Sevaka Nitya, Drid Hakori Daro Nityarpai. So just catch him very tightly. So Prabhupada is saying, even just grab the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. And he's Nityananda, means Nitya, Ananda means eternal bliss. You also become eternal bliss. He's fully spiritual. You grab his lotus feet very firmly. You become spiritualized. So this is how we touch Krishna. This is how we grab Krishna's lotus feet, hearing, chanting, and remembering. This is the method of directly touching and contacting and grabbing hold of and taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. All of it is nama, rupa, guna, lila, sangha. All of it comes from hearing and chanting and remembering of Krishna. And this whole ISKCON movement, this whole process given to us by Srila Prabhupada is this process of how to touch Krishna, how to contact Krishna, how to physically and also figuratively grab hold of Krishna and contact Krishna, and from that becoming purified and becoming reestablished in our relationship with Krishna. And if you do that, then you'll always be in contact with Krishna. Krishna can never escape your grasp. Some of you may have seen that play of Nandulal, the play about the life of Bilvamangal Thakur. And he's old and he's blind and he's in Vrindavan. And I won't tell the whole story, but at the end of it, he's blind and he's old. And he's trying to catch Krishna and grab him. And Krishna is like dancing out of his way. And Bilvamangal Thakur says, you may have escaped from my arms, but you can never escape from my heart. So this is how we capture Krishna. This is how we touch Krishna, constantly contact Krishna. And in that way, Krishna can never escape we don't escape, and Krishna can never escape from contact with us. One final verse, nice verse about this in the prayers of Lord Brahma is Gyanai Prayasam Udapasya Nimantya Eva Jivanti Sanmukaritam Bhavati Avartam Stanestita Shrutikatam Tanuvan Manobir. What's that? Ye prayaso jita jito pyayasi tais trilokyam. That gyane prayasam, give up your mental speculation. No need of mental speculation. Gyane prayasam udapasan namanti eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadi avartam. Just absorb yourself in chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Stanestita, you remain in your position. You don't have to change your ashram. You don't need to change your address. You don't have to grow long matted locks like a yogi. You don't have to sprout 6 arms like a Vaikunthavasi. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything. Just chant the glories of the Lord, Shruti Katam, Tanu Van Manobi, and offer respects to this Krishna Kata Tanu with your body. Offering respects with your body means literally you bow down. Like every time you go in the temple, we bow down. Tanu Van, Van means Vak, with your words. You glorify Krishna with your words. And Manobi, Manobi means with your mind. So Tanu Vak Manobi is the same thing. It means hearing and chanting and remembering. And then if you do that, Ye Prayaso Jita Jito, that Krishna, who is Ajita, he's unconquerable by anyone within the universe. He becomes conquered by such a devotee. Just by hearing and chanting and remembering. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, we could do that now.
Very nice class, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare
And
Krishna,
lot of information you gave us, how to keep Krishna in our control.
Yeah.
Keeping in our
It's a lot of information, but it's also a simple thing that you could sum up in a sentence.
Simple thing. Yeah, that's what usually we do, but it's thinking like that in our ears and our mouth, and whatever quantity you have, it's not enough to praise him, enough of thinking of him and talking his Katha, Krishna Katha. And that is one thing, Prabhu. And I just really like that, the way you are telling about what is that? Purnamasi Mataji was telling that about
Yeah.
granddaughter. That was also interesting.
Yeah, that's a beautiful verse. I love that verse too.
Thank you very much for nice.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Question or comment? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention.
Yeah,
All
Krishna.
glory to Srila Prabhupada. Vanchakalpatu.
Krishna Kripasundabhyev Sarvasnam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo.
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Everyone have a
Thank you very
excellent day.
much once again.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.